What if I told you that the little prince is actually the aviator or the pilot? Hi, everybody. So, today I'm going to be talking about The Little Prince. So, this is a book by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. So, excuse my pronunciation because I don't speak French. And today I'm going to be comparing The Little Prince to The Fool's Journey. The Fool's Journey based on the Jungian archetype, Jungian psychology. And I'm going to do that by using a deck of tarot cards. So maybe first I should explain what is an archetype in Jungian psychology. So Freud said that the human behavior can be explained through unconscious motives or subconscious motives. However, Jung takes it further by saying that there is a collective unconsciousness. So you can see it in cultures. So there is a recurring theme in cultures that is repeated in different cultures that has different expression but has the same underlying theme. For example, there's this father archetype. The father archetype is present throughout cultures. Maybe the expression is different. Like, for example, in Greek mythology, you can see it in the concept of the god Zeus. And you can see that also in the Norse mythology in Odin. So the expression might be different, but it has an underlying theme. What is interesting about The Little Prince, it's actually simple enough for a child. Like at the surface level, yeah, it's a story. It's a fairy tale, a kid's fairy tale that is actually exciting about an adventure of a little prince going through the planets, of going away from his home planet, coming to Earth, and he meets a lot of different people. But at a deeper level, it can be seen as like the journey of a person who is actually the inner child of a person and the process of to integrate that inner child to the self. And also, what's interesting is it has lots of profound reflection. If you reflect on the story, it's actually quite profound, and also there's lots of lessons hidden in it in the story. So the Little Prince the book start off with about the story of a pilot or an aviator in some translation, depending on which translation you're reading. So this pilot or aviator, so he's actually recounting his childhood, that when he was a child, he drew something he said that it's a drawing of an elephant inside of a boa constrictor. But however, when he showed that drawing to adults, none of the adults understood what the drawing was. So I think that this is the part of his childhood that is actually wounded. So he was wounded as a child. So he's trying to, and then it becomes his inner child. So this inner child, he projects himself as the little prince, that is got projected as a little prince. And also what is interesting in the story is that the little prince never introduced himself to the pilot, but the pilot just immediately understood, oh, this is the little prince, this is how I met the little prince. And also what's interesting is actually the little prince immediately understood the drawing, because the pilot kept the drawing in his pocket. And then he showed it to the little prince, and then the little prince immediately said, oh, I don't want because the little prince asked for the pilot to draw him sheeps. And then the pilot showed him his pictures, and then the little prince said, he immediately understood that it's a picture of an elephant inside of a boa constrictor. So I think that the little prince is the pilot because he immediately understood. And also the little prince never actually introduced himself to the pilot by saying, oh, I'm the little prince. But the pilot immediately just understood that, okay, this is the little prince. I think I read this somewhere in a book, tarot book, maybe it's by Mary Greer, if I'm not mistaken. She said that everything we see in our dreams is actually ourselves. So everything that when we're dreaming, even though we're dreaming of a chair, a dog, or maybe like an elephant, or maybe another person. You dream of your mother, your father, or your friend. So actually, all of that is you. So because you are projecting your desires, you are projecting your fear. So if you see like a rock, that's you. So in your dream, everything is you. So in my opinion, I think everything that the aviator sees, or everything that the little prince sees in this story, is actually part of the aviator, which in turn I think it is actually part of the writer, which is Antoine de Saint-Exupery, because the little prince is actually blonde, and then the drawing of the little prince is inspired by Antoine when he was little, because he was blonde as a child. Okay, so I think the little prince is the fool archetype. So he is this one, 0 in the tarot card. So he is the fool. Is actually, this is an archetype of someone who's just, he's very innocent, and then he's just starting in to go to the world, and then without knowledge, without anything, but he's actually quite brave. So it's also shown here in the book that the little prince is very naive, very, he's not knowledgeable, he doesn't know a lot, so he asks lots of questions. And you can see here, so the fool is going on an adventure, and he's stepping into the unknown, which is the abyss. So he goes on an adventure on his own. And you can see it here. So the little prince going on an adventure by catching a ride on birds. So during his journey, the little prince met a lot of different characters. Let's see, I'm just going to highlight some of them, so I'm not going to mention all of them. So the first character I think that he met was the king, over here. And in the tarot card, I think that is the emperor. So the emperor and the king both are shown sitting on a throne. So I think the emperor here represents authority, and also the father figure, the father archetype, and yeah, manliness, manhood, or maybe it can also be interpreted as the patriarchy. So I think in The Little Prince, this is a cautionary tale. This is a cautionary tale that warns you to be careful of authority, because here the king gives orders, but sometimes the order doesn't make sense. So, and then the little prince questioned the king, the authority, like, because he likes to give orders, and then sometimes the order doesn't make sense to the little prince. And the little prince also talks about the rose. I think the rose is a symbol of the femininity. So in some some of the in the Wikipedia article, I read that the rose is inspired by Antoine's lover. So maybe, yeah, it can be a lover, it can be the sacred feminine also. I think it can be like even your mother, even his mother probably. So like the sacred feminine, like something that reflects your home, and also the home planet of the little prince. So this is the rose in the book. In his adventure and journey, so the little prince also meets the little prince also meets a fox. I think here you can see that he meets a fox. So I think this represents the part of the little prince, or the aviator, the part of the aviator that is wild, that is untamed, that is more animalistic. This is represented in the tarot card as the strength card. You can see that this woman is taming a lion. And the little prince finally came into a well, because at the beginning of the story, the pilot was stranded in the middle of the desert, and he only had water for like 8 days. In some translation, it's mentioned that he only had water for a week, but in some of the translations, it is said that it's 8 days. So at the end of the 8th day, they found a well. So I think the well here represents the fountain of youth. So finally, the little prince, which is the inner child of the pilot, came across this fountain of youth. So the little prince can eternally live in the pilot. So the pilot can finally integrate his innocence, his innocence, because he was wounded as a child because adults didn't listen to him and also he didn't understand him. So finally, the little prince, his inner child, can be integrated to the pilot's self. So I think the little prince in the end lives in the pilot. So because the pilot cannot see where the little prince is, but however, he can still hear the little prince, he said. And yeah, I think that's about the fountain of youth. So some people think that fountain of youth is like a physical place, but I don't. Some people think that is actually not a physical or an actual place. Yeah. So the fountain of youth here is a symbol that if you drink from the fountain of youth, you can be young forever. And I think the little prince is young forever because, and then the little prince is young forever because he's the inner child of the pilot, and the inner child is also what I've told you before, is symbolized by the fool. This is the fool's journey. And I also think that the little prince is integrated to the self of the aviator in the end in the story. The inner child, or maybe the fool, is sometimes also called the puer eterna, or for a boy, puer eterna or puella eterna, which means the eternal boy or the eternal girl. And towards the end, the little prince met a snake, the snake that said that, oh, I can help you to go back to your home planet. So I guess the snake is death in the tarot card, because but I don't think here death means physical death, but I think death means, it can mean dissolution, it can mean like an end. So I think here death in the story, death means the death of the little prince in order for the little prince to be able to be integrated to the self of the aviator. So the little prince went back to his home world, so which is, I don't know, so this card is actually, the world is actually representing the integration of all the aspects of your personality. So maybe you have like the personality that is actually broken, or a personality that is dissociated. So I think in the end, so the aviator or the pilot can eventually integrate all those parts of him together. And so yeah, I think that's the end of the Little Prince. So the aviator finally is able to integrate all parts of his personality, the fox, the king, and everything. So yeah, that's my opinion about the Little Prince. In the end, I know some of you would say, bro, it's not that deep, it's just a fairy tale, it's just a kid's story. But